Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. When you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. It is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on Smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me as usual is David Morassutti. David, how's it going, sir?
Doing well, doing well. It is almost time.
Yeah. How's the church treating you?
Treat me well. Treat me
Things are,
well.
things are going well. The pandemic finally is in the rear view mirror.
In a way, it's been a slow crawl tonight. So getting everyone back and getting into that habit again. It's taking some time, just like a lot of things. It's not fully back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. It's a lot of fun socializing. I love doing this, but I prefer being with you there at the game. But this is, it's second best. It's convenient when you're 2 hours apart to be able to do something together like this. Um, Restream, Zoom, all of them. Thank goodness for that. We've become very accustomed to that. Technology being what it is, um, I guess the first thing I'd like to talk about is we had a bit of an issue with the Canadian Football League announcing their All Stars.
Yeah, announcing their all stars and then having to say, "Oh,
Never mind.
sorry, we kind of messed that up." So we're gonna have
Absolutely.
take some of that back and redo the list. And just so many things about that was just so played wrong that like I felt bad for players that were on the list that generally thought they were going to make the list, and there's money and I think people forget there's money involved with that. And then
Bonuses.
then
Yeah.
you see the list and you're like, how did this guy get on the list? And it was a disaster that could have been avoided in a big way. And it did not. It was just a bad look altogether for. Really, I mean, it was just the league. Nobody else was really at fault for it other than the league. But it was just such an unfortunate situation. Now they just gotta learn from it and move forward, I guess.
I have a bit of an issue where there was talk, like you just said, didn't make sense. Some of the picks, absolutely. Harris didn't make sense. A lot of things didn't make sense, but it didn't make much more sense after that when you get 16 Hamilton Tiger Cats, third place team in the Eastern Division, 16. The Argos first, six, or was it nine? Six.
In the first round or second round?
No, the second round. The first round, it was reversed. Hamilton
Yes.
and Toronto were reversed. They were inverted. But
Yes.
now, you've got the third place team has 60, more than both Montreal and Toronto combined, who finished first and second.
I think there's 7 from Toronto, 7 or 8.
Well, whatever. Yeah,
But
okay.
Hamilton having more is definitely a eyebrow raiser. I will agree on that one.
I mean, not that they went from the fry pan into the fire, but it still doesn't seem to make sense. I don't get it. But this happens all the time where you get all stars. Players become all stars almost because they're expected to be all stars. But anyway, um, that was crazy. That's on the negative side with the Canadian Football League. With the positive side, we've got a couple of things that are positive. We positively are going into the playoffs.
Yep.
We just heard that BC will be getting the Grey Cup, and on the first jettisoned management person, Jason Moss, is available anywhere, maybe even Edmonton as an OC. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like Jason Moss will be flip flopping between those two,
Edmonton and Saskatchewan.
Edmonton, Saskatchewan.
No, maybe Edmonton. Sorry, Saskatchewan, Edmonton. Then he'll come back to Toronto
Maybe he'll go to Ottawa.
or Ottawa, which is where we thought he would go a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, if especially because they it seemed like a team that was in need of some offensive I mean, Paul Police was there, but now with him gone, there could be a potential fit. At the same time, how many times will Jason Moss get that opportunity? Right?
I don't know. You know, he was the offensive coordinator in Saskatchewan.
Mhm.
Saskatchewan's offense suffered. Their number one quarterback was became no longer a number one quarterback. I guess in a way, they may be picking between Jason Moss and their quarterback.
I don't know if it's Jason Moss and the quarterback. More so, you know, Craig Dickinson had to make pretty much. I mean, I don't know how much of a decision this was on him, but this is kind of a message to Dickinson in a way to say, all right, we're gonna take away the scapegoat of the offense, which is Jason Moss. Um, I think Cody Fajardo, they're not tied to him next season, so they'll give Craig Dickinson that clean slate if he wants it, if he and he's gonna need it in a way. I think they gotta go in a different direction in many ways. So yeah, I think that it'll be a very interesting situation there in Saskatchewan. Let's just say.
Status quo for the GM, status quo with the head coach. Offensive coordinator, bye bye. Probably the quarterback may be leaving. At least he's already said his goodbyes and he hasn't left yet. So Saskatchewan's will be in a off-season reset, and reset they will have to because the it seems to me anyway that we've got a situation here where Saskatchewan's going to be in tough because the way BC's improved, Calgary's always Calgary,
Mm-hmm.
and Winnipeg's the you know back-to-back Grey Cup champ. So Saskatchewan's got some work to do.
I mean,
Never mind Edmonton.
the biggest one for Saskatchewan is they had the worst offensive line in the CFL. I don't think anybody would say any team had a worse offensive line than Saskatchewan. So if it does not matter what quarterback you bring in, whether you bring back Cody Fajardo, whether the rumors of going after Bo Levi Mitchell, none of that will matter if that offensive line is not handled. Because if there's something we know in the CFL, a team that overlooks its offensive line, it's going to cost them in the long run.
So what do you think, David? Do you think they'll dip into American offensive linemen?
Well, teams have tried their best to add those, Canadian, special players, specialty type players, whether at receiver or running back, just to give them that flexibility that yes, now we can start an American on the offensive line. I just think you have to really to figure out, was it the talent and the players, or was it the coach? Was it the coaching? Because Saskatchewan, let's not forget, their offensive line coach was picked up by the Argos last season when Ryan Dinwiddie put his staff together. They took the offensive line coach from Saskatchewan, and then he ended up leaving the Argos to go to Edmonton to work with Chris Jones. So it could be potentially a coaching issue or it could be a talent issue. That's something that's going to be the biggest question for, you know, the GM and the coach. Is it that they rule that's got to be their first order of business. How can we get this offense to be better? Because I still think that defense is good enough to win. It is a good defense, but there's only so much that defense can do when that offense is putting them in such a hole.
Well, it's the same issue in Toronto, right? The better the offense plays, the more victories they get. The defense gives them a chance to win every week. And,
Yeah.
and I think Saskatchewan's the same. The defense gives the offense a chance to win every week.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think that's something teams have started to realize. If our offense can do just enough, our defense can win us the game.
Well,
But it's
I'm looking forward to see what they're going to do.
Mhm.
Dickinson and company, they put together a pretty good team. They won, they won the Western Division 2 years in a no, not 2 years in a row, 1 year. They've won the Western Division. Um, they have the ability, and the problem is that the talent isn't working the way they intended. But I think the biggest issue they have is they have a culture issue. I hate saying this because this is one of the things I always criticize: the culture of the team. The problem that I see with Saskatchewan that they need to iron out is discipline. You know, and what's the reason why a team is undisciplined? I'm not here to claim I know exactly why. I just know that there are issues that lead to a lack of discipline, and the underlying issues that you and I may not be aware of, or anyone outside that locker room may not be aware of, need to be rectified. And some have suggested there are certain players that just can't be in that locker room.
Yeah, and they kind of took care of that with Garrett Marino. The
The
defense,
obvious one, that was the obvious one.
but there could be more. There are potentially more. Some that are louder than others. I will say, if that's kind of the correct way to say it. Some that it's more apparent that they need to figure that out. But that's really a coach. The coach has to be the one to say, we can't have this. We can't have this player here. We can't like the worst thing you can do as a team is be beaten by yourself rather than let your opponent beat you. And we hear that a lot with teams. I mean, the Argos kept telling us that all the time. We beat ourselves. We didn't. Our opponent didn't beat us. Well, technically, the opponent did beat you. It's just you guys didn't do enough to beat them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see where Saskatchewan's thinking is with that because there were games that you could tell things weren't going their way because of the things that they were doing to themselves rather than what the other team was doing.
Well, you have to be prepared to win. You have to be able to execute, and you have to be able to be professional. And being professional is not taking stupid penalties. And when I say stupid, I mean stupid. You don't take penalties when you're not dressed for the game. That is that is to me that's the red flag that clearly indicated there's an issue in Saskatchewan with discipline. So let's see what they can do. They've got a great opportunity to carry on and also meet a pretty big challenge. And Edmonton, if we could talk about them for a little bit, that's a team that, just imagine, they're looking up at Saskatchewan. And we just talked about how tough a road Saskatchewan's going to have in the offseason, getting things together to catch up to a speeding train that took off at the beginning of this year in BC, and Calgary, the consummate professional organization.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many teams that you can look at and you can say this is the model that you should be following. Some teams don't like to be the copycat; they kind of want to be their own version, but it's kind of
They
hard
copy.
not to be
They
when
copy.
right. It's kind of hard not to be in that kind of position where you look at the other team and says, "Well, if it works for them, why wouldn't we try to do it?" That's what Toronto did when they became Calgary East. I always
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
that was the lot that was the biggest joke around. Well, like not joke. It was kind of a ha ha thing. Whereas, well, you called them
Not funny, haha. Not funny,
you
ha.
called them the Toronto Stampeders. We at one point we called them
Oh,
the Mississauga Stampeders because of how many players they had from Mississauga. But yeah, no. If something is working for another team, why not try to either beat it or join in a way, kind of join what they're doing.
Or in the case of Toronto, Dinwiddie came from Calgary, so why wouldn't he surround himself with people that he knows that are good? And if he's in Calgary for a prolonged period, spend a little time in Montreal. But I, I I think it's going to be very interesting for those two teams. They're going to be in tough. It's going to be a tough situation, and it gets tougher because you can't even look at the crossover because Montreal's for real. I think Montreal's for real. What you see is what you're going to get for the next couple of years. The Argos, while they haven't had any success recently since 17 and winning a Grey Cup, they have won two divisions back to back. The Hamilton Tiger Cats are much better than they seem. And, I give the Ottawa Redblacks a leg up on Edmonton. And if Saskatchewan doesn't figure out what they're doing, I give Ottawa. I look at Ottawa to be a better team than Saskatchewan. If Saskatchewan can't figure, the main issues out, offensive line, quarterback discipline.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing obviously the last few years we've kind of seen the same teams kind of cycle through in terms of the playoffs. There has been a lot of movement on that front, but you can see certain teams are where the decline is happening and where the rise is kind of happening. Like for Winnipeg, they're at their peak right now, and unfortunately, at some point they're going to go down. Maybe we'll see.
But for them. Listen, they're not going to beat themselves, David. I think that's clear. They're not going to beat themselves.
No,
But that doesn't mean that a Calgary or a BC can't play as well as they've played this year. And if they do, they could beat Winnipeg if they play as well as they've played this year. I think Calgary has played enough really good games, good enough to beat Winnipeg. And of course, BC, the same thing. And we've seen Winnipeg, I'm going to say sputter, a little bit, right? They sputtered a little bit. And if they sputter in the playoffs, we've seen teams do that. And then there's also the issue where we're really going to see coaching and planning in the playoffs because we all know that one thing that football loves doing, teams love to do is to surprise their opponents. They're very secretive in practice during, the playoffs. There's a few tricks that they put, a few things that they throw in, a few wrinkles into their offense or their defense. And, sometimes they hit the jackpot with what they decide to do, and teams that look invincible all of a sudden look ordinary. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen to Winnipeg, but I'm saying it's possible.
no, it's definitely possible. Um, we've kind of this is going to be the hardest CFL playoffs to predict. Like
Sure is.
I have to write a preview for the East semifinal for Sportsnet, and one of those things I got to do is I got to do a prediction.
Good luck. I got Montreal. We'll get to that. I got Montreal over Hamilton.
I mean, you look at these last few games that Hamilton and Montreal have played against each other. Montreal won the last contest 23-16. Hamilton won 24-17. How about the third game? Oh, yeah, that was a 29-28 Montreal final. It's like, give me a
Here's
break here.
here's
It's
what
literally
I'm
a 1 point margin.
here's what my prediction's based on. The Ticats are a very good organization. They're a
Mhm.
very loyal team. They've got a great coach, and his weakness in this playoff may be starting Evans. I don't think Evans can beat either Montreal or Toronto. I don't think he can. So if Schultz gets into the game, they've got a shot against Montreal. With Evans, I don't think so. I think Evans, unless he somehow does an about face when it comes to tossing INTs, this has not been a good year for him when it comes to INTs. And that's really, really, and I say it every week. For a quarterback to be successful and to help his team win, he cannot throw interceptions.
No. And Orlando Steinauer was asked about the possibility of Schultz playing. Like, like they should expect both quarterbacks,
Absolutely. This is what Hamilton's done the last 5, 6 years.
right?
and,
That
and so,
and they've it's funny because they have succeeded because of it, but in the same way, I think it's also impacted their ability to really get that one guy to take them over the top.
Yeah, and there's always been an issue with injuries. Hamilton quarterbacks, it is what it is, David. When you say a quarterback has to be clean, usually it's about the offensive line keeping him erect.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it's about staying erect, regardless of whatever is going on. So I really think that, and I'm sorry if we jumped right to the predictions and to
Go
the
ahead.
the East. The East, I really truly believe that Montreal is going to win the East. Not that I don't want Hamilton to win, because I was convinced Hamilton was going to make the playoffs before Hamilton fans thought they could make the playoffs. So I'm not going to sit here and take the guff from Hamilton fans saying that I'm negative Hamilton, because that's not what it is. In reality, my judgment is Hamilton will start Evans, and hopefully he doesn't put them in a hole um, too deep. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not a good quarterback. I'm just saying that right now he's not
He's an
at
unknown.
this moment he's not a great quarterback. That's what he's shown us this season. He's shown us a very poor version of himself. That doesn't mean that's him. It just means he's got a hole to dig himself out of.
He's been way too inconsistent. Like there's some weeks where I think he's going to have a good game, and then there's some weeks I think he's going to have a tough time because the other team is a better team. Like the game against Calgary, I would not have expected Hamilton to have any chance to win that game, but Dana Evans led them to the win. Um, against I'm trying to like even against like Toronto, you think Hamilton has a good chance to win. Dana Evans just doesn't have it. And then they bring in Matthew Schultz, and he seems to have it. Like there's just too much
And then
uncertainty,
he gets hurt.
and he gets hurt. And he was banged up in their last game that they played, or in one of the last games that he's played
Yep.
too. Like it's just too much. That's the one position that you can't go in and say we're not sure what we're going to get, and that's dangerous. Like Hamilton's defense will come ready to play. They're going to give Montreal a tough time.
If they win, it will be because of a major contribution from either quarterback.
Yeah,
If
and their run
Hamilton
game,
wins, that's what they're going to need.
game's got to be really good because they got to find ways to get yards. But
That
man,
helps the quarterback.
it helps the quarterback. But we've seen in the CFL that the running game can only get you so far.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
Hamilton doesn't trust it enough to go with it all game long.
Well, when the league averages 60 yards a game, you know, we saw 150 yards this year, but that's like the first time or the second or third time in the last 5-6 years that we
Like
had
like we
that
saw
kind of.
we saw over 200 yards by Standback
Yeah.
last year, and that was just like when was the last time we saw that?
Yeah. And if he's healthy, that changes things a lot, because can you imagine Harris, the experienced quarterback that he is, the ability to consistently reach his receivers, to hit his receivers, his experience, and then have that kind of running game to boot? This
Yeah,
is why, I'm leaning on Montreal for the prediction.
I
It might
so
not get ugly, but it's going to be
I think it's going to be
probably
a close
Montreal winning.
game. I think Montreal can do it because we know what we're going to get out of Trevor Harris. His receivers are starting to pick it up a bit. Eugene Lewis is Eugene Lewis, no
Oh my
doubt what he's
goodness.
going to do. Jake Winicki has really impressed me lately with his ability to just
Yeah, slow start to the season, and he's playing more like we expected him.
yeah. So like they got that going for them, and their defense. The only thing
Their
is
defense is good.
their defense is good. Will they got to make life miserable for Dane Evans to win this game if the defense doesn't make plays or find like the more confident Dane Evans can get in this game, that's going to be the undoing for Montreal, in my opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
Like
I,
I said,
yeah, I do think though Montreal has the balance that you need on offense and defense to get it done.
I think they have the confidence too. Hamilton has more to prove, but I think Montreal has the confidence.
Yeah, worst case you have Dominic Davis after he put up that massive performance against Toronto.
Oh, that was
What did he
the
complete 50
definition of
passes in a
garbage time.
row?
The
Something like that.
yeah, he had 3 touchdowns.
1 quarter. So
That's right. All in a row, no interruption.
so we can you can look at that. I mean, I think Montreal and the sting of last year's loss too. Let's not forget that. Like there's some
Absolutely.
unfinished business with this group. Same for Hamilton, but Montreal, I know for a fact, like they felt like they shot themselves in the foot a lot in that game last year, which they did. Now let's see, can they do what they need to do?
They shot themselves in the foot last year, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats have sore feet this year. To use your analogy.
No, exactly. So,
Yes. So it's going to be a great game to watch. It's going to be very interesting,
are you predicting a
unpredictable.
low scoring game or a high
No,
scoring game?
no, I think it's going to be well. What do you want to? Let's see. I'm going to say north of 48 points.
Okay, so you're going with the over under 48.
Yeah,
Actually,
about 40.
I don't know why I didn't look up the over unders for this game because these two teams don't generally put up massive points. I mean, we've seen Hamilton put up big points, but they usually don't. That's the interesting part. So the over under of this game is 48 and a half.
Is that what it says?
Yeah,
Oh, I said
48,
48, and I didn't see
48
it.
and a half. And most of the betting lines have it as Montreal favored by 3.
Pretty much what we were talking about.
So the value here, the value play here is if you think this is going to be a low scoring affair, 48 isn't a bad bet there. Um, but I just think that it could go either way. This is the most unpredictable game that there is in terms of like what
I
it's
I think
either
I
going to
think
be
the
very
I
low
think the
scoring.
West I think the West is more unpredictable.
I'm saying it's more unpredictable that I don't know if we're going to get a low scoring affair or a high scoring affair. We're not going to get something in between. It's either going to be a really tough go for it for both teams, and it's going to be a struggle to get points, or both teams are going to be firing on all cylinders, and we're going to get a great back and forth.
Okay, that kind of unpredictability. All
Yeah.
right, I still think I like the 48 over under the extra half point. I'll eat that too, I guess.
Okay.
Um, but what I'll say is this, and that is that if Trevor Harris has a running game, they're going to have the ball a lot. It's gonna,
Mhm.
they're gonna chew up the clock. And as long as they chew up the clock and as long as they have possession of the ball, Hamilton's gonna require some defensive interceptions from Harris and even maybe some, pick sixes. That's how Hamilton's gonna win. They're gonna need some pick sixes to win this game, in my opinion.
Mhm. Like, so the other thing to keep in mind here is like when it comes to this game too, who's going to be the one to step up for Hamilton? We know Eugene Lewis is going to do it for Montreal. We know he's the
Well, it
guy.
has to be Simone Lawrence. Over
Mm.
the past few years, that team plays well when he plays well. He has not played as well the past couple of years as he has in previous years.
And that and and part of the reason why he hasn't been playing well, not because he's not good, he's because he's been banged up.
Exactly.
And that to me, it gives me a little pause. But I'll say this: it wouldn't surprise me if Hamilton were to win this game. I just I would have a hard time saying with certainty that they could win this game.
Well, like they say, the best ability is availability.
Right.
So, and availability to play at your pace and not favor any kind of nagging injury. And this is why Toronto will be sitting at home watching this game going, hit harder, hit harder. And you know what? This is going to be an angry game. Montreal and Hamilton don't have a history like Toronto and Hamilton.
Yeah.
Montreal is now at the point where I think they're starting to get very aggressive and very physical, much like they did a few years ago when they were leaning on Grey Cups. And I see this match between Hamilton and Montreal being very feisty. It's going to be a physical affair, and I got to tell you, Hamilton can bring it, and I think Montreal can bring it as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I think Montreal can definitely bring it because we've seen them do it. They were the ones that gave Winnipeg their first loss of the season,
Yep,
right? They've had some
absolutely.
very, very impressive wins. It's just, can they do enough? Can they finally do it in the game that matters, right? That's been Trevor Harris's MO the last, no, how many years of his career. Um is he in the right are they in the right position to have all those doubts not something that will creep into their head, basically?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, we're going to find out. I think it's going to be very interesting, and I'm telling you, this is going to be one of the best seasons we've had in the Canadian Football League in a while. We're finally over the pandemic. The false starts are done. We've had every organization has had an excellent opportunity to put together a really competitive team. Obviously, with Winnipeg being who they are, a lot of teams have learned not to like Winnipeg. There's a giant target on Winnipeg. Plenty of motivation to go around with every team. Who doesn't want to knock off the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? The Western Division will get the first crack at them, depending on who wins in the game between Calgary and BC. The question is going to be, which BC team are we going to see? This is much like, must be a cat thing, you know, where we know that the BC Lions can be a really, really good team, but it really is dependent on their quarterback.
yeah, no, the quarterback is the straw that stirs the drink there. They have arguably the deepest group of receivers in the league. Their offensive line is better. Their run game, that's gonna be another one. But
Yeah.
the thing about this game, when was the last time we had an indoor CFL playoff game? So the weather will not be a factor in this game. I'm trying to remember the last time BC hosted a playoff
Well,
game.
they
This would
hosted
have
the
been
Grey
like
Cup and they won. And the playoffs, when was the last time they hosted a playoff game? Well, when Riley was there, they never. So when Riley was there, they didn't have a
first
home game.
first time in 6 years.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's a long time for uh, sorry, an indoor playoff game. And I don't think I think that's something that benefits the team that wants to pass the ball. And that's BC. They like to run the ball, that's for sure. But we know Calgary's MO is we're going to run the ball and take our shots down the field.
Well, this is the time of the year when football teams everywhere in North America, as the seasons go further into the winter, the more teams rely on the run.
Yeah.
And so when you say that, now Toronto are lucky enough that winter weather, they can escape winter weather, like the way the weather is in Toronto. So the run game for Montreal is the reason I'm saying this is the run game in Montreal is going to be important. They're the home team.
Yeah.
Temperature's a little lower there. So to your point, now you got BC. It's indoor. Um, it favors receivers indoor.
Yeah.
There's no wind to speak of. Um, so yeah, it's going to be it's. We talked about 48 and a half. The over under in that game is going to be maybe add another touchdown for each team.
Yeah, actually, I was about to look up the over under for that game. Give you 2 seconds. So it's 50.5 in the BC Calgary game.
Well, so, I think the chances of more points in the West Division in BC than there are in Montreal.
Oh, for sure. I think the two better teams right on this weekend, the better offenses. I know defenses, both defenses are pretty good, but I think there's going to be a desire to open things up
I'll
offensively.
take 60, David. I'll take 60.
It would take 60.
Yeah, I'll take 60 over under.
Okay, it's not an outrageous number as
Oh
long
no,
as
it's an outrageous number, but I like being outrageous.
if both teams get close to 30 points, you're
I
laughing.
I think it's possible,
It's,
especially indoors,
yeah.
right? I mean, the defenses don't have to worry about slipping and sliding, but the receivers don't have to worry about slipping and sliding either. And gripping the ball, the stick'em's going to do a lot of good work.
Yeah.
And the receivers that are in that game, there's going to be some interesting. I'm I know I'm going to enjoy watching that game just strictly based on the run game that the two teams have that they can put together, and with some pretty good receptions. I mean, any game that Barnum's in, it's going to be an interesting game for touchdowns.
Oh, for sure.
Burnham.
Oh no, that's a given. I think I'm just looking up here. The last time these two teams played each other in all right, okay, so this is the other thing too. The last time these two played each other in BC, uh, Vernon Adams was the quarterback. It did not go the BC Lions' way. They only scored 11 points. Calgary had 25. I mean, if it's going to be Nathan Rourke in this game,
Was
then
that 17?
no, I'm talking about this season. So
Oh, this season. Oh, okay.
back in September. But you look at Calgary. I mean, BC has had some impressive performances at home. They've had some not so great games at home, but for the most part, especially early in the season, it was very tough to go and win a game in BC for the most part. I think of the blowouts that they've had there. I also think of some of the tough games they've won there, and this is going to be a very pro BC crowd. I think
Oh,
they're opening up they're opening up the upper section
yeah, of
for
course
this
they are.
game. So this is going to be a good crowd, which they've had some decent crowds, but nothing. I don't think that they would no they've had in the past here. Like they've had you know at certain times.
Absolutely. And the other thing we're gonna find out, we will find out, is the two quarterbacks that'll be. It doesn't matter who they put out there, because I don't think we'll see Bo Levi Mitchell start.
We won't see Bo
Um,
Mitchell in this game.
I think it's going to be interesting. The two quarterbacks that come out there to start, this is going to be their first playoff game for Adams if he's the guy, in
Mhm.
a long time. Where last year he's got stuff to make up.
Right. I think the big one too is you know for especially for Calgary, how if it's Nathan Rourke, you
Hmm.
have to think that the game plan will be keep this guy off the field. What's the best way to do that? We are going to run the football as much as we can because that and if we can keep these long drives and keep them off the field, that's what's going to win us the game. Because what's going to hurt this team and what's going to hurt Calgary potentially is if they're trying to go with the passing game, not able to sustain drives, and BC gets as many cracks as they can, and that's going to make life difficult for that Calgary defense, which is a good defense, but they can get tired. And I think Calgary's offense has been good, but BC's with Nathan Rourke is better.
If Adams plays like the quarterback of a couple of years ago, where he stretches the defense and that tired factor or tiresome factor that you're referring to will actually kick in. You know, he has been historically, maybe not recently, he's been a deep threat quarterback looking for the deep threat. You know, he throws up some passes where he really does challenge his receivers in the back of the end zone, in the corners. Um, when he's on his game, and that's why I say I'm looking forward to the touchdowns that'll be happening here. Because if Adams is on his game, it doesn't matter that it isn't the Canadian that's starting, because Adams can win a football game. He can be central to doing that with his feet, obviously, which is obviously a trait that he has that's beneficial for him. And BC's at home. The enthusiasm, is going to be very high. And what they've done, what the ownership group has done there, the owner, he has made BC a place to watch a football game, to be at a football game. He has turned, it seems, every time he gets a chance to turn it into an event. And David, I'm looking forward to what's going to happen off the field
Mm-hmm.
in this game. I'm going to see, he's going to be bringing some really great artists in. He did it before. He's going to do it again. There's oh, you know what? I forgot the artist that he has coming in, and I just think they're going to do a great show. BC, they're coming back to the way they were a few years ago. They were always an avant-garde organization that they did things in a very interesting and entertaining fashion.
So I know Sarah McLaughlin is
Yeah,
doing the anthem.
the anthem. I love
Um,
her.
Nathan Rourke was taking first team reps in practice this week, so that's essentially who I believe is going to be in. But I think Vernon Adams is going to see some time as well. But the big one here is Lucky Whitehead is doubtful.
Oh, that's painful.
That's the one I'm like, we know how much better that team is with Lucky Whitehead.
Absolutely.
And that's a tough loss for any team to overcome. So that's something to watch out for. If you're, it's good that that Rourke is likely going to be starting, but not having Lucky Whitehead, that's gonna change things up a little bit on how they do things on offense.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be awesome. I'm thrilled about this game. I really am. Listen, I'm sincere about this. I'm loving these two playoff games. I just, you know, I don't really know who's going to win. I can predict based on the logic that resides here at this point before the game. Um, you know, it does come down to, with each playoff game, David, the predictability based on what they've done recently, in many cases, to what they've done a couple of years ago. Like, does BC continue its great pace of becoming a better and better team? Does Nathan Rourke become and continue to be the difference maker that he has proved to be at the beginning of this season? Can Jake Meyer take the next step? And then you go back to the East, and like I said, you've got the experience of Harris. You've got Hamilton with something to prove. They've got a new. They got some juice because they made the playoffs. A lot of people didn't believe in them,
Mm-hmm.
except for me, and their own fans didn't exactly believe in them. So this is going to be a very interesting playoff.
Yeah, because nobody expected them to be there, and I didn't. I didn't know how good Nathan Rourke was going to be. That's the big one there, right?
Remember before the season, we sat there and they said, the GM and the coach said, no, we got our starting quarterback. We're quite happy with Nathan Rourke.
Oh no, for sure.
Remember that? Remember? We're going, well, really? Oh, okay. Well, they knew something we didn't. Well, I'm not gonna take you down the road. I'm not gonna throw you under the bus. I didn't know what they had. I didn't really understand. Well, who could have said that he would have had that kind of season to start? Really, who would have predicted that? Did anybody? I don't think so.
Hmm.
And talk a little bit about the Grey Cup going there in 24.
Oh, I know. I mean, kind of a little out of nowhere to kind of announce it this week, and
I
we
mean,
also
like
found
the
out.
music, like the second
Yeah, we
the
finally got
halftime entertainment.
we finally got that sorted out.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I no, I think if you're BC, this is a good preamble to say we don't just expect to be here this year, but um, yeah, I think this is a good opportunity for BC to reestablish itself in the in this marketplace and
absolutely,
as a destination. I think the big one here, BC wants to be seen as a destination for things like this.
absolutely. And they have a nice little option that the Canadian Football League has no other team that can offer:
Yeah.
indoor and a fair sized stadium. A lot of tickets can be sold in
They don't
there.
have to do anything different,
Nope.
right?
Other than move other than move the cloth in the upper section.
Right.
That's all they have to do.
And they
So
got
yeah,
a new owner here who likely was given this opportunity to, I want a great, it would be nice if we could host a great cup, and what better time than when you get a new owner who's very much committed to making this work in the best way possible. So I think BC is definitely trending up in so many ways.
and don't forget, we no longer live in a world where a team gets the Grey Cup and makes the lion's share of the money. It is shared pretty evenly between all the teams.
Yeah.
So if BC proves in 24 that they can be a bit of a cash cow, it makes it harder and harder to reject the idea of going back there on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I like when every team gets a chance to host a Grey Cup. Don't get me wrong. I also don't mind the idea of having a host city that can make this a great. Just I like the indoor stadium concept. I'm not a baby with the cold. I'm not that. I just think that it would be nice to see it go to BC a little more than just once every so often.
I totally agree. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Mm. Yeah.
Absolutely. David, this was fun.
Thank you, Frank.
Oh, we didn't say. I
Oh,
got
oh,
I got I got oh boy. I got Calgary in this one.
I got BC.
Okay, so we
This
have
is gonna be
something
a
to talk
close
about
game.
next week.
This is gonna be a close game, but I think we're split. Yeah, we're definitely split on this one.
All right, David, thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, he's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk Aaron live Mondays, normally at 9 p.m., but we moved it this week. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody.